What's good, everybody? I'm Jędrek. He's Sodek. And this is the first episode of Magic Talks. Let's go. Alrighty. So you might be wondering, what is Magic Talks? So this catchy and for some reason unoccupied name so far is what we decided to call our mailbag series, because calling it Mystical Teachings mailbag videos is a bit too lengthy and it doesn't have the same nice ring to it as Magic Talks. So we decided to jump right onto this name. We took it, it's ours now, and that's what it is. So a bunch ago, or a while ago, we decided to record one of those. So we asked you on Twitter and Discord and stuff, or we asked you to give you some questions, to give us some questions that you wanted us to answer. And now we are happy to report that we got some of them, and those ones we think are really interesting. And we will be doing one of those episodes like every 3 to 4 weeks. It will be a bit more frequent at the beginning because of our scheduling, but later on we want to make it like a once a month thing, when we will talk about things that are related, at least vaguely related to Magic. Maybe at some point some things that are even less so related to Magic, but for now we will keep it mostly Magic. And yeah, that's it. Anything you want to add about the general premise of this video, Sadek?
Like always, if you have any questions, don't wait with them and write them down right now in the comments. So maybe we'll pick your question next time.
Great. So, in spirit of listening to your questions and answering them, the first one that we have comes from us, because that was the topic that prompted the whole discussion of making a mailbag video, because we wanted to talk about it, and so they wanted to make a separate video, and I thought it's too short for having its own video. And then after a bunch of arguing, we decided that we want to try this form of content where we are just answering or talking about some shorter topics that are not enough by themselves to make our like once per week video that we expect to be like half an hour, 45 minutes or even more sometimes. And there are some topics that are interesting, that are not as deep, or we don't want to spend too much time talking about them. And yes, that's what we will do today. So this first question or first topic that we will talk about is, should Yorion be banned? Or rather, to get you into the spirit of how this talk will go, why Yorion shouldn't be banned? Because neither of us think that Yorion should be banned.
That's true.
Yes. So first of all, I will ask Sodek what he thinks, and then I will try to play the devil's advocate, and I will come up with some arguments for why I think people want Yorion to be banned. I think some of those arguments are reasonable, some of them aren't, and that's how it will be. So Sodek, why Yorion shouldn't be banned?
Short answer, it's because it's not oppressive for the format by any means, and we shouldn't ban cards because we don't like them, because, different players like different things. So if we start banning stuff because we don't like it, then maybe our pet deck will be in danger one day. So generally speaking, as long as the card does not produce any problems in terms of like being too powerful, in terms of like some tournament issues, like Second Sunrise was once, etc., like the ban actions shouldn't be taken. And there isn't any problem in terms of power level if we talk about Yorion. because like some people say that yeah, 4-color is too powerful, etc. That's not true. Basically, 4-color is a good deck. There are some moments in the metagame when 4-color can be the best deck, but it's very far from being broken. It's not like it's not a Hogak level, it's not Eldrazi level, it will never be, because there are many problems the 4-color decks have that can be exploited, and it's relatively easy to attack these decks if they become too popular. There are like a bunch of combo decks that just crash.
I think
4-color.
it's not even like a Phoenix level when it was like consensus best deck for a while. I don't think that 4-color is even there, let alone those like super broken things that you mentioned.
Yeah, like there are some local meta games when 4-color can be the best, but I don't think that's the case. Also, I also believe that people overvalue how 4-color is good in some matchups. For instance, people love to say that 4-color crashes Murktide, and that's just not true based on the results and the win rates we have access to, and the experience of players from the both sides. So, in my opinion, like banning card just because like some good players continue playing the deck and having success in like local areas, because it's not seen on MTGO at all for like a lot of weeks already. Like
Maybe it's not unseen, because I think like a couple of 4-color decks will pop up on Modo almost every week. But it's definitely like it wasn't a like in top 3 most popular decks for the last month or so. I think like Blue Red, of course, on the top, then Hammer, then Yawgmoth, and then I think Living End was usually more popular than 4-color as well. It's like 4-color was like 4th most popular decks. At best, maybe third after Hammer and Murktide. So yeah, definitely what you said, and also I agree what you said earlier. Like we've already talked about it many times, that Murktide versus 4-color matchup is tricky, especially from the Murktide perspective, and I think that many times you will see somebody who's less experienced in the format, not as invested, and they will see this amalgamation of most expensive cards in the format, and they will lose to it because those cards are really strong on their own. And if you don't have this like fundamental understanding of the format that you can't possibly have if you are newer to the format, and how those cards matches up with your cards and how to outmaneuver them, you will lose to them. And many people will say that, okay, Magic is pay to win, Magic is stupid, Magic is dumb because they just play the most expensive cards in 4 colors and Sans Ragavan, I guess, and they are just crashing because they paid more for their cards than I do. And that's just not true, because like it's true that it's an amalgamation of most expensive cards, or some of the most expensive cards, of course. But I think there's this kind of feel bad is one of the main reasons that many people want Yorion to be banned, because it just feels bad to lose to this pile of good stuff things. Is it a valid argument? To some extent, yes. But only to some extent. And I don't think it's enough by itself. The most compelling argument, in my opinion, when it comes to banning Yorion, is that companions are fucking stupid. And they should be erased from the game. And this is the basically only argument that I wholeheartedly support. And I think that if I had the power to alter the ban list, or the not only modern ban list, but in general, Magic ban list across different formats, if I could press the button that says companions are now erased from Magic, I will do that so fast, as fast as I can, basically. I will keep those cards, and I will just, take a Sharpie and blur the companion part, because I think like Lurus is a fun card to have. I think there are decks that would like to play Lurus in their deck as a 3 mana card that have this kind of value graveyard engine. It's a cool card, but I would just erase the companion mechanic as a whole. And I would probably like make some of those cards a bit cheaper on mana because they are priced as they are companion. Like I think like a 4 mana Yorion that can be a companion would be a pretty interesting card, I think.
Yeah, quite powerful actually.
Yes. Of course, there are some cards like Giganta, for example. I don't think you can price Giganta in a way that it won't be broken, but it will be playable. I think like Giganta is this kind of I'm just too free to not play in some decks. And like stuff like I don't think you can make like Giruda any less expensive. I think
Like
it would be a bit too good. Yeah, maybe like if it's not a companion, you can have it costing an odd mana cost. You can have it costing 5 if you don't have companion restriction. So
you can have only if you don't have companion restriction. Okay, yeah, that's
and then you probably in the text box it has you have to get back an even costed creature or any creature, and it's usually even because your deck is all evens.
I'm not sure.
If it says even costed, you just cross out even costed and you bring back any creature. And maybe it's too strong at 5. It's definitely too strong at 4. Like, of course, it wouldn't be 6/6 for 4 mana. It would be like 4/4, whatever. Or 5/5. But yeah, I do think that the companion is bullshit. Let's remove companion from the game is a very valid argument. And I think, once again, the only like steadfast argument in favor of banning Yorion. And yeah, other than that, the already mentioned feel bad aspect of losing against a bunch of expensive mythic rares is something that I can to some extent sympathize with, but only to some extent. I don't think that...
Just learn how to win against these piles, because like if we magically ban Yorion because you don't like winning to you don't like learning how to win versus like the pile of expensive cards that don't interact that well with each other, then like another problem will happen eventually. So
you will get frustrated because you lose to Merktide that has a playset of €50 mythic rare or however much Ragavan costs these days. So yes, I agree that those arguments are not that convincing to me. Other argument is what already Sodek mentioned with 4-color is the best deck and it's too good for the format. That's mostly common in states, which is, once again, due to thanks to the data that we analyzed, it's just not true. Like, there is this kind of regional bias. Great states player for some reason like to play 4-color, maybe because it suits their preferences. Like, we are not saying that they think that 4-color is broken and in reality 4-color is a terrible deck. 4-color is a good deck and we are not trying to deny that. But 4-color is pretty far from being the best deck and very far from being broken. So yeah, that's just that doesn't really hold up in my opinion as well. Just I guess you have to stomach the fact that people will present 80 card decks for a while.
Yeah, like I also don't believe that, like, you know, mistakes in Magic happen. That's you know, a natural consequence of like expanding a card design pool. And you know, like 15 years ago, the dredge mechanic was a problem, and people wanted to erase it altogether. But okay, maybe they didn't want to erase because, like, I will sound like a boomer, but like 15 years ago, players were more focused on trying to beat something with the height instead of complaining all the time. But for instance, like the one card that was banned only because people were crying loud enough, it was Tibalt's Trickery. In my opinion, it's a terrible ban. It should never happen because like the deck was just bad and just didn't have it would be the same as like saying right now let's ban Song of Creation because it can kill you on turn 2. The same level of argument.
Yeah,
like Tibalt's Trickery had any results. Like, it didn't have any results and got banned because it wasn't fun to lose to turn 2 or turn 3
Yeah, in my opinion, like Tibalt Trickery, like I am the big proponent of trying to see the net worth of a card, like positive slash negative value of the on the format, and it kind of like gets swept into this big ban announcement, and like I wouldn't ban it, but there's no reason to unban it in my opinion now because like it's just
like similar to Breach from Below. Like
it's like
they ban
stupid
it
card
because
that doesn't like it creates those like non-games, and I don't think that it does what Wizards intended the card to do because I don't know because of the ineptitude in design it. Like I think it was supposed to be more of
red
a
counter spell,
sideboard card counter spell for red decks rather than something like similar to Oko when what's you were like, yeah, we didn't really thought about targeting your opponent things with the +1 ability, and they were like, okay, we assume that trickery will be a sideboard card for red things for red decks to target your opponent's spells, not your own spells. And
For instance, I wanted to play Tibalt's Trickery in Dredge, but like as a counter spell. But once like Tibalt's Trickery deck showed up and countering Tibalt's Trickery with Tibalt Trickery is not the best idea because like the card would do the same basically. Uh, like made
okay,
me not wanting to play
yeah.
it. But overall, mistakes happen, and saying that something should be banned just because it's not really well designed card, it's my opinion.
Well,
It's
I think
just
the
bad in my opinion.
very well designed card. I think that's actually a good argument. Like Magic should be a well designed game, but like I can get behind not banning things because they are not fun. Somebody opinion. I like to some extent. I think it's important, but in a very extreme cases of cards just being very frustrating on a very fundamental level, and not because oh, I don't like that this person is countering all my spells, or oh, I don't like that they're blinking their whole board or something. Like that's not like fundamentally mistake. It's not a fundamental mistake in design. Something else I wanted to touch upon that you mentioned before is the logistical reasons, and I've seen many people on Twitter wondering whether we should make rounds in the tournaments longer because of the Fire Era design and because of how many things, different things new cards are doing. And we've seen many people going to time much more often because of all those new, very packed designs. And people are going to time more often now because the cards are just having more text and the games are more complex. And I can get behind that, like going up to like 60 minutes or something, but that's a whole different discussion. Okay.
Like that's a like okay, that's a different discussion, but
Yes,
I'm
it's a
very
different discussion.
skeptical.
So let's move to the actual first question that somebody asked, or even three questions. It's from Piegonti on Twitter. They asked us, when you decide your pet deck is no longer viable in the format, do you shift to the best deck or the most similar one to the deck you play? For example, Dredge to Living End. And then third bonus question is, how do you approach different formats? So let's lump two first ones together. So when you decide your deck is no longer viable and how do you proceed? And I guess Sodek, what's your take on
Yeah,
this?
like I had the wild ride in my last like 3 years because I switch decks quite often. And like I really like to play one deck and master it. Like when I like my I would say career, it's like maybe too much to say about it, but like I started playing Dredge and I was playing it all the time. Like when I started playing MTGO because earlier I played many different other combo decks. And like I fell in love with Dredge. I was quite lucky because Dredge got like more powerful cards over time, and it even survived the ban because like usually my spawn was play a combo deck, wait until it's banned, and try to do something else with another one. And Dredge was powerful enough to survive a Golgari Grave Troll ban, so it was kind of cool. But over time, like Dredge got overpowered, and like from my experience having from my experience having an experience with the deck really helps. And once I had the knowledge about approach like these problematic situations. For instance, obviously grave hate in terms of dredge, or how to like accept that sometimes you lose the matchup and you shouldn't try to win it at all costs. Like dredge, like thanks to dredge, I learned a lot about magic, generally speaking, and it was quite easy to use this knowledge when I was jumping into another deck. So, for instance, when Living End became something with Force of Negation, print, and then we got a bunch of blue cyclers, and I started playing just blue Living End because it looked like promising, and it was quite easy for me to just learn. Like, of course, like when I'm playing the new deck for the first time, I'm making a lot of stupid mistakes, but I'm trying to make it only once and learn from it and never repeat the same mistake again. So as long as I'm keeping improving, I can eventually get to the level when I play with the deck well. So I'm not very interested in playing the best deck because after all, I'm playing Magic because I want to have fun. But I'm trying to find the deck that's good enough to win tournaments, but it's similar to my playstyle. For instance, I'm not a mid-range person. I would not like to play 4-color all the time because like drawing from the top of the deck and hoping that you'll find what you need is not my style exactly. I want to execute my game plan and attack.
That's
Very
exactly what
early.
combo decks are. You are drawing your combo off the top. I think that this
No.
argument is very combo focused. Like I think mid-range decks are.
No.
I think mid-range decks are good because they usually can draw anything. Like you just want to draw land and spells, and what you need is land and spells, and combo needs like a specific card. I get what you are saying, but I think this precise argument
maybe
is
I
more
said
of
it
a
wrong.
like.
Yeah, maybe I said
But
it wrong.
I get
Like,
what you are talking about.
Yeah, I wanted to say that like I don't want to trade with cards. I don't want to like play a removal on opponent's creature and play my creature just to see the opponent plays a removal on my own creature. I just want to play something that's a bit outside the box and that does not trade that well with opponent's cards, and I can just execute my own game plan well. So overall, like switching to decks isn't that hard once you invest enough time playing one deck to realize that you don't lose to variants that often. Because like I strongly believe that playing one deck for a long time is a really good way to learn how to get an advantage when you like a month ago wouldn't think that you can get an advantage. For instance, playing something in different phases of the game. You don't play like these are basics for me and for most of you right now, but we all had to find like to learn it. For instance, you don't if you don't have to, you don't play anything on first main phase. You attack, then you play on the second main phase to not get information before blocks, for instance, or like you learn how to read the game based on how what land drops the opponent is doing. You could learn if they have a lot of lands in hand or not. For instance, if someone fetches for a basic in a multicolor deck, that's a strong signal they have more lands. Like these are basics for me now, but I was learning them while I was playing one deck all the time because like the more I played one deck, the more automatic my decisions were, and I was able to focus on details. And I strongly recommend you just at least at first play a lot with one deck, and then once you learn the basics, you can jump into other ones, and this won't be that hard for you.
Okay, Sodek said a lot of valuable things that don't really answers the question that Piegonti asked. But
Actually, yes, yes.
but
I read the question.
I will try it myself. So first, when you decide your pet deck is no longer viable in a format, I would say mostly the most like apparent answer is if you are doing what you feel your deck is supposed to do and you are not winning. Like, it's not enough. For example, when I first started playing a lot of Modo, I played a lot of Blue-Red Through the Breach. And at some point, your game plan of, I will remand this, I will bold that, I will play Cryptic Command, and then I will cast Through the Breach Emrakul. Like, at some point, this perfect draw that I am striving to have every game, just delay, and then play Breach Emrakul, just wasn't good enough. At some point, it stopped killing my opponents, and I stopped winning after resolving my combo. At this point, it was quite clear to me that this is just not good enough anymore.
Sorry.
It's fine.
Budzik mnie zaskoczył. I had a really similar feeling when I was playing Dredge in like 2018 or 19. I don't remember. I was playing like a lot of GPs then, and like I had like 3 GPs in a row when I couldn't advance into day 2. And I was like, the first one, bad variance, whatever. The second one, and another bad variance, and I got bad matchups, and I made one mistake because I was tilted, etc., etc. But after the third one, I was like starting realizing
something's not right.
Maybe that's not variance. Maybe
something, as we say in Poland,
I'm playing.
As we say in Poland,
yeah.
Something is no yes.
Yes. Okay. Like maybe I'm playing wrong. To some extent, maybe yes. Maybe my deck choice was wrong. And like once I realized that this is the
crux of the problem.
Yeah, and like when other good players were saying, maybe this wasn't the best pick for this tournament, I was like, Canister, maybe you're right. Because Canister was playing KCI, and I was still playing Dredge at this time. And like the worst feeling ever is when you play your pet deck and you don't have any results, but then you see that someone else has a result. I said, like, I had this. Okay, actually that was quite the opposite, but it was like quite similar. I was very scared of playing Dredge, so I played Red Green Valakut for some reason. Went 0-4 in the Grand Prix.
The famous GP Prague 2018. One of the most famous GPs.
No, it was.
It was this GP.
It was in Spain. I'm pretty sure.
It was Prague. It was the GP when Lori DQ'd the KCI player. It was in Prague. 100%.
Okay. Like the idea was that okay, so maybe
I'm positive that it was this GP, but it's not important.
I mixed two GPs, but the result is I was too scared to play Dredge because Crabvine was popular. I was like, okay, everyone
some bullshit
will have
excuse.
Void. So I switched in the last second and went very poorly.
But you had 75% win rate on Modo in testing, and you were very confident that the deck will be good.
Only 65, and that was
like
true.
that.
But I for some reason players were killing me before I could ever cast my important spells.
Interesting. Okay, so back from Dredge talk, because there was a lot of talking about Dredge, and I actually want to answer the second part of the question, which I think is more interesting. Do you shift to the best deck or the most similar one to the deck you play?
I answered this.
Yes, you did. And for the most part, I agree with Sodek. I think that if you are like, some people really have no preference when it comes to what decks they like to play. If you are that player, play the best deck and be happy with it. But vast majority of Magic players will have some preferences. And you play Magic because it's a fun game. And if it stops being fun to you, then you most likely should look for something else. So I play decks that I think are fun, at least in some extent. And finding the sweet spot between being fun and being good is really important. And for the longest time, my sweet spot was playing the best Snapcaster Mage deck in the format. And I think like it's a good guideline. Like I know what I like in Magic. I know what types of games I like. And I'm trying to find the deck that suits this criteria and is as good as it gets in the format. So for example, now I'm playing Merktide. And even if sometimes I have no Snapcaster Mages in my deck, but spoiler alert, I will have some very soon because I think they are... I went full circle. I stopped losing. I started losing matchups that were good before, and I thought about why they are bad now. And I think this was largely the reason that I think my matchups were bad, and they were good before. And I will investigate whether that was true or not. But I will go back to playing Snapcasters. Still, I do think that for most people, shifting to the best deck that suits your the most similar good deck is a very good idea. I will stick to that. And then finally we have the third leg of Andrea's question, which is how do you approach different formats? And I think that the best idea in general is pick up good deck in the format that you don't know much about or anything. Find some resource on the deck, study it, and try it out. And I guess it depends whether you are trying to prepare for a PTQ type of event or PT type of event in Pioneer. I would for example, there's the regional championship in November, and if you want to test for those, for example, in September when the new set releases, I would just start playing Red Black or Phoenix or Mono Green and learning from this perspective. If it's a Pioneer format that you play on the FNM level, just go wild, brew your own decks. But if you want to actually approach it from the competitive side, I would just test proven good working decks, and I would strive to get as much resources as possible from people who are experienced in the format. I would, if I have this option, I would talk to people who know a lot about it. I would have some conversations with them on Twitter or other social media. And I think that's the best way to dive into different format that you usually play.
I would mostly agree with what you said. The only thing I would add is read cards. Check the winning deck list and read cards. See what they can do, what they can't do. For instance,
learn what type of removal is good. For example,
what type of proactive game plan is really good, because based on this, you
will die if you do if you are playing a combo deck. How fast your goldfish has to be before the aggro deck of the format kills you. What sizing on the creature is good for their damage-based removal? What type of counter magic they are playing, or what type of discard they are playing? What are the general terms of engagement in the format? This is very, very important.
I strongly believe that this knowledge will help you play out your first games. If you, for example, start a league with the deck, then this can help you. Of course, if you don't know the format, please don't try to rebuild the decks because you maybe think that something can be better.
I would just take a stock 75 and play with it.
Just don't change anything. There was a very interesting discussion when Doomswitch, I guess, Doomswitch or probably Doomswitch said that pieces of the puzzles are really bad in Phoenix and Pioneer.
Yes, it was Doomswitch.
And Pioneer Phoenix players were that's not true. The card is good.
Yes.
And from this perspective, it was much easier to believe to
a person
the guys
who has experience.
Who has experience.
I think the only way in which I would disagree with do not touch the 75 you get is if you see that the mana base is terrible.
Yeah.
I think you can actually mana base is just math. And you can just see what lands are available in the format. And if you, for example, it usually happens if you take a 5-0 deck from the league, which can be misbuilt, or even from the challenge. And you see that, for example, they missed something, or that you can't play your spells on curve consistently, and they just get lucky. That's why they won. Sometimes the mana base can't be held. For example, allied mana base in Pioneer is pretty bad. But most often than not, you can at least improve it in some capacity. So that's what I like doing myself. I'm just taking a look at the mana base. I might change the mana base that I'm playing, but I very rarely touch spells on on my first league. Sometimes I will change 1 or 2 cards maybe, but never the core like the core idea of the deck. Okay.
Okay, I have
Yes.
one more advice. Play at least a few leagues on MTGO, because like when I was like short story, like 3 months or 2 months ago, I started playing Pioneer. I was searching for a deck, and a friend borrowed me a red black sacrifice deck to play in paper. Like I was like, okay, maybe the deck isn't the easiest for the beginner of the format, that I can do things. And when I was playing it, I was like like consuming so much of my brain power trying to to keep in track about all the triggers that can happen, and I was still missing a lot of them. And after I started playing Red Black Sacrifice on MTGO, magically realized that the triggers just go to the stack, and then I can learn when they happen. For instance, trivial situation, fable passage. My opponent had them, like this fetch land that
Yeah, Fabled Passage.
yeah, fable passage. And like I was missing this one damage all the time because I just didn't realize that opponent sacrifices the card. Now after I played the MTGO, it's very easy for me. But when I was thinking about so many different things that can happen, I was just forgetting about
Just
them.
to clarify, they are losing one life because your Mayhem Devil triggers, not because
Yes.
Fable Passage is like other fetch lands
Yeah.
and actually
Yeah,
requires you to page life. Because I was confused for a second before I realized what you meant.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mayhem Devil was a tricky one, or like a timing on unlucky witness. It was like quite easy. Like once I realized how it works, but like I had to spend a few times. And one league with the deck would help me so much with learning it. And I strongly recommend, like if you don't have MGO, just create an account, borrow cards from card holder, mana traders, whatever, and learn. MTGO is the best place to learn Magic, and like
Get
your
better.
friends can your friends can tell you, yeah, let's play paper Magic, and you'll learn things. That's true, but you'll learn much more
And much quicker.
by much quicker doing like the same on MTGO.
Okay. Last question is from Wrzobusex on Twitter. And Wrzobusex is asking, how do you cope with the fact that EDH is in fact the most popular MTG format and it has immense impact over paper card value and set design done by wizards? Do you still use silly memes like EDH is a board game, LOL, or have some other strategy? Sodek, your answer?
EDH is a board game, LOL. That's my first statement. At least multiplayer one, because one v one is really cool and I like it, because at least like your goal is to win the game of Magic instead of not trying to show that you can win unless it's competitive EDH. That's a different story. But like if you are playing a like more casual version, it's more about interacting with people, doing cool things, casting cyclonic rift when you don't have to, etc. So that's like I will never be like a commander player, because like this is not my style of play. I like to like play to win, even if some of my deck choices are not really good at winning tournaments. But overall, I totally accept that Commander is the most popular way to play Magic, because after all, Magic is about the gathering, and about like interacting with other people. And I'm actually very happy that this happened, because the more players are in the game, the better for the game it is. Because like I'm like um I'm more like with extra 10 million players playing Commander, I'm pretty sure that the game will survive next years. Like the game is in the best place it ever been, I believe. Maybe not after the COVID, but that it's really is in a really good place. And part of this is because Commander players are like a very strong force that keeps the game alive. So of course there's some annoying things, like for example each opponent clause that I hate so much, because like in 1v1 game it shouldn't have so much impact. For instance, you have Lane of Sanctity, and each opponent Soulgate Lantern, but your only opponent, their only opponent, and that for some reason like works still. So that's kind of annoying, but like all other things that like this commander players affecting the prices of the cards in boosters, I'm very happy with it, because now I can open boosters and sell like a commander staple that I would never ever use for a lot of bucks.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, I assume you are done, Sodek. You already covered what you wanted. So, I am using the silly meme of EDH is a board game because I think it is, and I think it's nothing wrong with that. I think it's actually pretty cool. Like, how does I think that what defines a board game is, for me, at least, I play a lot of board games. I really, really like board games, and I think this social interaction with other people, those politics, and those agreements, like, oh, I won't do this, you won't do this, so we can both help each other, is pretty key in board games. This sort of negotiation, and when you add this to Magic, I think it becomes a board game. I don't think that EDH is a board game in some kind of demeaning way to saying that EDH is less important. I just don't think that. I basically think that adding the multiplayer aspect to a game that was basically designed as a single player game changes it. It's not making it worse. It's not making it better. It's making it different by a lot. And I just don't think that you can compare EDH to 1v1 Magic, or more broadly, multiplayer Magic to 1v1 Magic, because it's just completely different. I agree with Solid, for example, I don't play EDH because...
Why not Commander?
It's always been called EDH in my circles. When I actually had a EDH deck or Commander deck back then, I don't think that there was a branding of Commander introduced yet, because I played this format in early 2010s, and I think the first time WotC actually used the Commander name was when they released the Commander 2013 Precon decks. So we just knew this format as EDH back in the day when I actually played it from time to time. So why I'm not playing EDH right now is that once again, I think it's closer to board game than 1v1 Magic, and there is nothing wrong with it. I just don't think that Magic makes for a good board game. And if I want to meet up with my friends and play a board game, I have games that I like much more than Magic for this purpose. I have maybe not a sizable, but I have some collection of board games. I have friends that have many board games, and we are meeting fairly frequently and playing them. And it's just not treating Magic as a board game is just not for me. I would actually be kind of interested in playing a 1v1 Commander, because I think that the singleton part of Commander is really appealing. I think singleton creates many unique experiences in gameplay that the 4-off limit kind of destroys, because your deck is consistent. It does the same thing every game. I think in general, I think Magic would be a better game if it was designed around the 3-off rule than a 4-off rule. And we won't ever see this. It's not possible at this point to undo 30 years of game design. But I think there are definitely a lot of benefits to singleton Magic. And I think that Commander is making Magic a better game in general, mostly because of this growth. I think Commander is a very inclusive way for new people to play Magic. Before Commander was popular, it's unthinkable that you see a couple 100,000 account on Twitter tweeting about Magic because, oh, I got 2 decks to play with my friend, with my fiance or my girlfriend, boyfriend, friend, whatever, and we are playing this. And like this was a tweet from like some pro esports players, like some League of Legends team just bought like 4 pre-con decks for Commander, and as a form of relaxation they were playing Magic for the first time in their life because it's like board game. It's just a pastime for you to relax after and unwind. And like Magic would never get as much time in popular spotlight, like mainstream, if it wasn't for EDH. I think it's a really big part of the game, and I think it's a great part of the game. It's just not for me, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I think competitive Magic and Commander, like there is competitive Commander, of course. I don't really understand how competitive multiplayer games work. Like for the same reason that I don't really understand the purpose of like nationals at like Settlers of Catan or Terraformation of Mars or any other board game. Like I don't understand. I don't get the point of that. But in general, I think that it's a really good thing that Commander exists, and I think it's a really good thing that competitive 1v1 Magic exists. And it's not that one is better than the other or worse than the other. They are very, very different, and some people will enjoy one of them, some will enjoy the other, and some will enjoy either both or neither. And all of those options are fine.
They're just different products, and once you realize that you don't have to play everything in Magic. For instance, you don't play Legacy, Vintage, or I'm not playing Limited if I don't have to. Because
it's basically like saying that Bridge and Poker are the same games because they are playing with the 52 cards, the same 52 cards. Like they're totally different games played with the same set of cards, and it's okay. Like it's fine. Like many people will I think that saying that EDH is not Magic is demeaning, and you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't say that. But EDH is not competitive Magic. It's a different thing, and it's fine to say because there is nothing wrong with it not being a competitive Magic. Like once again, CDH is a bit weird for me, so I don't want to talk too much about it. Once again, Magic is just not a game that's very well designed, in my opinion, to play in a multiplayer setting with the sole intention of winning. I just don't think it's very it's very solvable.
In practice, it looks like there are like 4 combo decks or like decks that maybe look like a mid-range or like a stacks pile, but eventually they need to win with the combo. So
but the details aren't important. Like I just don't think that so we can gank upon one person and kill them and then try to kill like gank into people on the third person and then play one basic. Like it's just not a very good. It doesn't mesh very well in my opinion with a I want to win setting of Magic.
Yeah, that was exactly my experience when I was like one day I played Commander. I borrowed the deck and like. Based on my knowledge from regular Magic, I just played everything into curve, and after like 4 turns of doing that, like all other players in the table said, "Okay, he's too dangerous. We have to kill him." And like 2 turns later, I was dead, and I was like,
"So
okay,
basically,
cool game."
Game. Basically, to sum this all up, I think it's great that EDH is such part of Magic, and I think Magic is such a great game because EDH exists in part of that. But it's not for everybody, just like playing competitive Modern is not for everybody. It's cool that it exists, and I think I'm coping quite well with it. I'm actually happy about it, sincerely happy that EDH exists. I'm just not playing it myself, and that's 100% okay. Okay, thank you so much for watching this first episode of Magic Talks. I hope that those discussions were fruitful and actually you learned something from them. If you have different opinion or the same opinion about those topics, please feel free to share them in the comments below. We will read every single one of it and we'll try to reply to every single one of it. If you have questions that you want us to answer in our next episode, also leave them below or on our Twitter or on our Discord. It's quite likely that at some point we'll just try to gather your questions. Again, there are still some questions that we wanted to answer this episode, but we didn't because we like
I was
talk a
talking
lot. Yes. So we still have questions that we will cover in the next episode of Magic Talks that will air like 3 weeks after this one. And yeah, I personally love this forum. I think it's cool to talk about those like different things about Magic. And once again, if you think it was cool, let us know. If you think there is something we can improve, let us know. If you think it's irredeemably bad and there is no way to save this type of content, also let us know. Because after all, we are making our content mostly for you. Also for us as well. But you are quite important part of our content. So that's it from us. Thanks so much for watching. As always, check the links below in the description to our website, Twitter, Twitch, etc. And we'll see you next week. Take care and bye-bye.
See ya.